I wore the shirt that I didn't know what it meant until you told me.
The Bush Latte shirt?
Yeah.
You didn't know that was a beer shirt?
I didn't at first. You gave me the stink eye wearing it and me.
Well, I was like, okay, motherfucker, I guess you're sober, but you're wearing a Bush Latte shirt. Sorry, Brad.
Hey, that's on wheels at least. The thing that shouldn't move moves, and the things that should don't.
Typical alcoholic.
Just for you.
We'll just kick the table back and forth.
You got it. Yeah. Yeah, dude. How's the coffee?
Strong. Good. Warm.
Like you.
Thanks.
Yeah, man. Anyway, I'm glad you're here. I asked you on purpose. You're like one of the first ones that helped me feel good about my sobriety, because I was pretty early in there when I first came in, and I can't remember how soon you came around, because you kind of come seasonally. That was back in 20, what year was it? 2017, the end of 17?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the end of 18 for me.
Okay. So
I had 9 months sober when I got to that meeting. It was December of 17.
So December 17, I was living in Wells and making it in when I could.
Mm.
So that was part of the reason, like, I wasn't always there. And I was working a lot, like 60, 70-hour work weeks. So when I made it, I was like, heck yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a 1-hour break in my life. So I'm glad. I'm actually glad that, like, you became okay with you.
Yeah.
I always thought you were cool.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You always told me too. You and I are peers, so it's cool too. It's cool to hear about how your sobriety went. We have some things in common, but kind of not exactly the same background and story as far as life goes. But anyway, our alcohol story is similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I remember when you came in, you were so quiet. Like, I was like, dude, just go ahead, start talking, start sharing. It's okay. And, like, you could tell you were thinking, like, you just didn't want to quite open up yet. Now you talk and crack me up most of the time when you're talking.
Well, that's good. That's what the meeting helped me turn into also. We got a solid meeting.
Oh, yeah. That Monday night group is definitely a good group of dudes.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to miss that more than anybody knows when I leave. And I think that Monday night meeting is actually the reason I stayed here for 10 years.
Wow.
Because I felt accepted. I made friends and family. I had to grow up. They helped me grow up. When my family was going through like some of the hardest things that I've ever been through, the guys from that meeting were there for me and like got me through it mentally, emotionally. Yeah.
That's really cool, man.
Right. Gene would call me probably on like an every other day basis to make sure I was good. Alan was like making sure I was dotting all my I's, crossing my T's, making sure everything was handled and in the correct order. So yeah, that meeting was probably the reason why I stayed in Northern Nevada for 10 years.
Wow. Yeah, it is solid. Everybody cares about everybody.
Yeah, because like I got sober in Boise, and it's a whole different vibe. Like, you might have a few people you're close with that check on you, But for the most part, you're just kind of, there's so many meetings and so many people, and like everybody's in and out, in and out. At least that was my perception because I was young. And a lot of the people that I got sober with that I'd see at those meetings, when I go home, I do not see them. Like when I go back to Boise and I go to AA meetings, I see a few. A few of the old timers are still rolling around at the meetings that they've cherished for years and been able to keep going. But for a lot, I don't see them. I don't know if they're doing okay, moved on, moved somewhere else. So yeah, just a different vibe. Like here, it's a really close-knit vibe. I mean, like the AA program taught me how to drive a Class B CDL
Right on.
so I could be competent at work. Yeah, got decoys and got good at duck hunting because of the program. Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't about just stopping drinking. It's about learning how to live,
Yeah.
have a good time.
And like a lot of those old guys are smart, pretty active in their different communities. You know, some are mechanics, some are cowboys, some are miners, and like you learn something from all of them.
Yes, sir.
And like, you know, there's an old saying like, if you hang out with dirt bags, you're gonna be the 10th dirt bag. If you hang out and like, you know, we hang out with each other, and like most of those miners are financially set up just outside of their work because they're old and like they remember what it was like struggling when they were young. So that was something else I learned while I've been here, is how to try to set yourself up financially instead of just buying the biggest truck or the newest UTV. I mean, like you can buy it, just set it up the way you need to.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I thank those guys for that, teaching all of us young guys that.
Yeah, it's really cool. The perspective I haven't thought about, but I could see every time I go in.
Like, I guess, yeah, like they're all set up and they set themselves up financially.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we don't really think about it because all of them still wear the same beat up Wranglers that we wear.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't think that until you look in the parking lot and every one of them's driving the newest edition, whatever. That's what gave it away to me. You know, when they all got 2500, 2023, 2022, 2024 Dodge Rams, F-250s, Broncos, Jeeps. And you're like, huh, okay. So you kind of start like asking them questions and like picking their brains on stuff. And you learn just from that.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but when I first came back to AA, one of the times I was on a motorcycle. I had my car parked, couldn't afford to drive it, stuff like that. Old used motorcycle. It was cool, but until it gets cold, you know.
Oh, yeah. Like, yeah.
Now I don't have to worry about it. I got a couple to choose from.
Like when I came to AA, I had nothing. And that used to frustrate me like no other. Because, you know, usually everybody had stuff and then lost it by their drinking. I got here and I had nothing. And so, like, anything I got, I've cherished. Because, you know, I grew up in a middle class to working class family. Like, we didn't have everything we wanted, but we got by. That's back, you know, when like 35,000 was like a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
My dad still says like, man, I remember when I was making 35 G's, like that was, you know, he was doing good in life. you know, it's kind of funny because as he said it, like he always said it in a pride, and I gotta like watch 35 become less and less, and you know, one day it's gonna be like that's gonna be me saying, yeah, I remember when I was making, you know, six figures or close to it, and the kids are gonna be like, okay,
Okay, old man.
so you're poor is what you're telling me. I'm like, oh God, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, my parents used to make like $8 an hour.
Yeah, like my dad was so stoked making like 11.55, like he thought he had made it.
Yeah, man.
And I had to explain that one to him one day. I was a shock for him, and that kind of added to my sobriety is like, you know, don't stop growing, don't rest on your laurels, just keep going. Like, yeah, you know, you might insulate yourself, but don't insulate yourself from the whole world out there, because you should at least know what's going on around you.
Yeah. It's your oyster.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
God's got a plan for you out in it.
God, I hope so. Some days I feel like all I do is mess up or jump from one bad idea to another bad idea. I mean, there's been probably one or two good ideas in the years, but you know, like most alcoholics, I remember the bad ones instead of the good ones.
Yeah, it's discounting what you're good at.
Oh
This
yeah,
seems normal or no thing to you.
yeah. I discount what I'm good at all the time, and yeah.
So you following a job to go out of this place, or?
Yes, I took a job with the U.S. Forest Service in Colorado so I can be closer to my significant other.
Right on.
Yeah, I'm ready for more of a normal life and not the transient life.
Yeah. Well, you'll never regret that.
You know, I hope not. Me and her talk a lot, and she's gotten pretty good at being self-sufficient without me and kind of being her own king of the castle. Because she's got a kid as well at home up until last year. And now he's at the local college on a full ride scholarship, doing really good. And yeah, kind of want to see him and her and spend some time with them because they've been huge for me and a huge part of my sobriety.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Well, sounds better to me, man.
Actually, she's helped keep me sober. Like, you know, doesn't realize it, but she has. Sometimes though, like, I've had to be like, babe, I think you've had enough once or twice over the years, because she's a normie, and I've ended up babysitting her.
No, she keeps you sober because you see what you don't want to do.
Kind of. Well, like, she doesn't drink that much, but like she'll tie one on about once a year, maybe twice a year. And I've usually around, like, and had to deal with that, and I've been like, huh. Usually she's like drinks a glass of wine and doesn't even finish it and puts a saran wrap over the top of it and puts it back in the fridge, and I'm like looking at her, looking at the glass, being like, just pound it and put the glass in the sink, like, you know. And she's like, nope, puts it back in the fridge, and like, I'll drink it tomorrow. I'm like, man, I still think to myself, you know, 16 years later, that's alcohol abuse.
Yeah. I bought some Guinness beers one time for me and my wife to share.
Mm-hmm.
She cracked one open. I don't remember how much she drank of it, but I ended up finishing all of them, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't get half of them, at least. because she kind of drinks the same way. She's like, oh, that tastes good. That's enough.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about that, it takes me back to this time when I was like 21, maybe just pushing 22. And we were at a bowling alley bowling with like a group of friends, and they'd just ordered some beers, a pitcher of beer. Nothing fancy, you know, like it was probably PBR or Coors Light. And they're like, okay, well, we finished our last game of bowling, and they still had like a full pitcher. And they were like, well, what are we going to do about this beer? And they acted like it was an issue, so I just picked up the pitcher and pounded it and like set the pitcher back down. And I was like, okay, problem solved. Let's go. And I guess, you know, most people don't do that.
I never would have known.
Yeah, I mean, shit, I didn't know. I thought that was common.
Yeah. Yeah, I did that. All the people I hung out with did that.
Yeah. Like, can remember that. Like, near the end of my drinking, I was not hanging out with the friends I was in college with, but more hanging out with the friends I made at the bar that I used to work at. And yeah.
So were you a sober bartender?
Oh God, no, I was drunk. I started bartending at like, God, I don't know, 19 to 21, somewhere in there. This little dive bar in Pocatello, Idaho, where I was going to Idaho State. Started off as a cook and a bar back, and picked up a few shifts on slow nights and with other bartenders. Made sure I always had a drink, you know. I remember there were some times where my bar tab surpassed my paycheck, so I didn't get one. And yeah. Also during that time, I remember I went out with like $200, and I had like $100 in my checking account for rent. I blew through that like $300 like it was fucking nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to call the landlord and be like, hey man, I don't have this month's rent. So he took me on a drive to talk to me about life, because, you know, I was young. And, you know, not to follow that style, and that I should probably have $600 next month. So my ass, like, somehow picked it up together and made sure I had $600 next month for him, so I didn't get kicked out. But yeah, that was fun. That was probably the first time I kind of thought about, hey, I might be an alcoholic. Then that idea kind of stuck with me through some time. I mean, I should have known the way I was drinking. Like we were talking about in that meeting the other day. Like, you know, you have your alcohol chart on the wall, and like what's an average person drink a week, and that's like what we drank a night.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also, like, I was young, so you add some drugs and other stuff in there too, some nights a week. And you know, I don't want to tell anybody that.
Yeah.
I mean, somewhere in the back of my psyche, I knew it wasn't right, because like most of us, we grew up in a pretty good household, even though they all had some issues.
Yep.
Then that year, a couple other people kind of talked on my drinking, and I was like, huh. So ended up stopping. And about a year later, 9 months, and no, God, 2 years. About 2 years later, just turned 23 when I stopped.
Wow. Same here. Did all the damage before I was even legal to drink.
Oh, yeah. Like, you know, I remember, and we were talking about this the other day, like going booze cruising under 21, like throwing beer bottles at road signs, and Mickey grenades, and like going for drives with your buddies up on like the foothills to get high so nobody knew you were smoking weed.
Mm-hmm.
And like shit, you were anywhere from 16 to 20 at that time doing that shit. Like, I kind of started young. Hate to say it. First time I ever had booze, I was 5, turning 6, birthday. We were in Spain and in the Basque Country, and over there they make the Calimochos a lot less strong for the kids. It's more Coke, less wine, like 3/4 Coke and like a splash of wine. Where over here, you know, when you drink a Calimocho down at the Star or at one of the Basque festivals, it's like 3/4 wine with a splash of Coke and some lemon and some limes.
Still for the kids?
You
You just get a regular one here?
Yeah, you get a regular one. And I probably had like 2 or 3 of those, and I was doing pretty good. And then, you know, growing up on a cattle ranch, like, hey, go grab us beers, and like, you'd get the first sip out of Dad's, or, you know, you'd sneak his as you got a little bit older, and he wouldn't notice because he couldn't remember if he drank 3 or 4 that night or what, or if he gave an extra one out to somebody. So started doing that, and then like didn't really get into it too much when we first moved to the city from the ranch. I didn't know anybody. And then 9th grade, I got high off weed for the first time and thought it was kind of funny. Then I hit like a sophomore and kind of fell in with a bad crowd. I mean, those boys are still my boys to this day that I fell in with. But yeah, like 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, 4 or 5 of them are like my ride or dies. Like, we still keep in contact. We've been there for each other through, you know, one's been divorced and single parent. Another one's been married twice, on his second wife, doing amazing. Keep in contact with him. When I was going through having to put my mom in an assisted living and figure out like their finances because her dementia made them so bad they were broke. And there was like no money to make this an easy transition in their accounts. He showed up with a truck and a trailer and was like, "What you need, bud? Me and the wife are here multiple days if you need it." Another one was helping me remodel my mom and dad's house. The one that's single dad. And then the other one, his mom was going through the same thing, and he flew back into Boise so he'd come check on me. He's like, "Hey, man, I can't afford time, but how about this? We get away at nights and just go for walks to decompress from our situations." And I was like, hell yeah. And then the other one, you know, we talk. He's on the East Coast, moving to Hawaii in the service. He at least gave his moral support during that.
Heck yeah.
And so, yeah, there's some ride or dies. And, you know, at first they didn't think I was an alcoholic, but then they kind of supported my decision as years passed.
That's cool. Yeah, I got a friend like that was with me at my worst. Now we still keep in touch. I brought him to that meeting the other night.
Oh, that
It
one
was
guy.
my friend, yeah, Jeff. Shout out to Jeff. He'll be watching.
Heck yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're over there. Sorry. I was looking at the wrong place. You look at the camera if you want to address somebody out there.
Okay.
Yeah. I was looking at the monitor so I could see myself.
Okay. And then, like,
Whoops.
you know, in Elko, not just the men's meeting, but I got pretty active in the Club 164 and the Elkie Pop program, and that was awesome. I made some really good friends there, too. Kind of surprising because I remember right before I moved down here, there was a guy in Boise at an AA meeting. he was up here from Elko, and he was like, "Yeah, AA is rough there. It sucks." And went to a meeting at River Street, and I was like, "Okay." A couple times, first year, and I already didn't want to live in Elko. Like, to me, I'd moved to the end of the world when I first came here. I was like, it's a prison sentence. I'll work for 2 years and get on out like everybody else. And I got to thank one old timer, Orion. He invited me to the Monday night meeting. And then Alan and Gene, and that was awesome. They've been there for me ever since. And yeah, that was 10 years ago.
Heck yeah. Yeah, it's solid.
And like the old Club 164, they're a good group of dudes. They've kept me sober. Hopefully I've helped keep them sober over the years we've known each other. I want to give a shout out to Batman Dan, getting me into service work and hanging out with you that one winter. Like, it all started one time. We were talking after one of his speaker meetings at River Street, and how, like, I get really bad seasonal depression here because it gets so cold, and like, I'm away from the family, both my parents and significant other, and we started hanging out and started being of service to others, shoveling walks. Like, one day, he still laughs about this. It started out that morning. We met at like the Saturday morning breakfast spot with the old timers. Went to his house, helped, I think, his wife's parents' neighbor load some wood, dig it out first, and then put it in her porch. And what was on the porch we put in her house so she didn't have to walk because she was an elderly lady. And then that kind of spurred us going to Walmart. And some kids were trying to climb a shelf and couldn't reach it, so me and Dan handed it to them. Next thing you know, we went into another store, walked out. A lady didn't have, her car was died right there, so we pulled the car up, jumped it. And then, Paul wasn't doing too good a couple of years ago, so we shoveled his walk for him, and then helped him move something for his dogs. And, kind of every winter just been a service to others. Been kind of cool in that. Meeting Dan, I got to meet like some of the other guys that are solids, like Catlin, Ben, and Chancey. Like, yeah.
That's great. It's a great way to battle the seasonal depression.
Oh, yeah. Batman Dan was awesome at that. Like, he still is, like, being of service to others.
It's perfect. That's kind of the secret of the whole program. It's how you battle your alcoholism too.
Yeah.
Just get out of yourself.
Yeah. And Dan's always big on helping others, so that got me better at it, I guess.
Yeah.
Just hanging out with him
That's cool.
made me a better person.
Very cool. Yeah, that has helped me right here, listening to it too. A reminder.
Cool.
We could all probably be better at helping others, but we used to be like not helping anybody.
Oh, God, no. I used to wonder how come nobody ever helped me. And, yeah. Now I try to help people. Some days it's even been told at work that, like, I'm pretty good at helping people around me and getting stuff done.
Yeah, it's cool. I used to get help and wear people out till they finally figured out I wasn't going anywhere with it, and then they'd have to quit.
Yeah, I
And
remember
then I'd
that.
get the lesson.
I remember that. I'm kind of, yeah, wear that person out, latch on for dear life with, like, meat hooks into them. And then all of a sudden, when they kick you by the way, get frustrated at them.
Yeah. It's hard, man.
Yeah, I remember that. So yeah, I think this little town has an awesome AA program. I mean, you're part of it. You're doing this. Um,
Yeah, this is fun
yeah,
and helpful to others. Hopefully, that's what be rad at something means. Like, it seems, I don't know if you call it a talent of mine or an ability. Let's call it an ability of mine to listen and to encourage people to do the things they're interested in. And it's kind of a good fit for us. We need people to encourage, people to help. So I get to like bring you in, bring other people in. They kind of have ideas of things they want to do, and I can listen and encourage them and kind of hopefully spur them on to go do cool stuff, to go be rad. So being sober is definitely one of those things. And you're one of those people. I'm grateful for you. You're very rad.
thanks, Brad.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this town's rad. Like, I didn't realize it when I first moved here, but like, I got to drive a Model A around Spring Creek. Convertible kit car out by Bullion. I got to drive your dad's classic truck. I've got to drive a Jeep and Carlin that I was going to buy with Gene. And like, I remember taking it down the snowdrift, how they plow their roads down the middle. And me and Gene are like, well, worst case scenario, you wreck it, you buy it, I guess. And gotten to drive his Jeeps as well. You know, and Alan just tossing you the keys to the UTV and being like, go. You got all that open country, just go. And yeah, like, I would have never had those opportunities had I not been here to drive cool, amazing classic cars and just spend time out on the desert. So yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had my fair share of not great here too, but when I think about this place, I think of the positive that, you know, it's afforded me. Got to shake a couple amazing musicians' hands here in this town, like Dave Stamey and Coulter Wall,
Nice.
and hold conversations with them just because of the poetry, cowboy poetry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's full of opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. People don't realize how much opportunity actually lives here, but there's a ton.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to kind of find it. It's hidden beneath the surface, past the casino lights and
Yeah.
bars and brothels.
Yeah, kind of everything good is hidden just past that line.
Yeah.
Whatever's easy to do.
And then, of course, Jody's Buick. I drive that, his newest Buick with the suicide doors.
I don't think I've seen that yet.
Oh, man, it's a good-looking car.
That's cool. Is that the green one? I
Yeah.
think I've seen pictures then.
Yeah.
Maybe I've seen it at the car show.
He was at the Spring Creek little bit of car show that they did at the marina last 4th of July, and then I got to drive it either before or after.
So what classic car are you going to get?
Oh, God. I don't know. I got to make some money first, you know. I got to buy a house and get that taken care of. And then, you know, I got to keep saving for retirement. So I don't know if a classic car is in my future. And I also got the truck that I'm driving now that still needs one or two things. I bought it. It wasn't classic. It was a 2010 Nissan Titan with 100,000 miles. And I put rims on it, new shocks, changed all the window openers and bought some of the plastic that it needs, and it still needs a paint job. So I don't know. Once I get the paint job done, it's ready to go.
Yeah, that's
But-
cool.
And a new bumper, put on one of those metal bumpers that's rhino lined.
You got to have a good daily driver
Yeah.
first.
And then I'll probably be buying a Volkswagen Jetta this next year for fuel efficient commuter.
How far do you have to commute?
It's going to be about 2 hours, maybe a little more.
As opposed to how many hours now?
Oh, like 7, 6.5, 7. I think the best time I ever made it from here to her was like 6 hours and 45 minutes when she was in the hospital one day. And yeah, I just hauled. Luckily, it was like Salt Lake had no traffic that day.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
It'll be better.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, like, I even talked to the folks about it because they're in an assisted living home. And, like, Dad was saying, he's like, well, go test it out. If you like it for a year, move us down there into another assisted living, and then kind of see everybody on your days off instead of having to split time. And we're all right there. And I was like, okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've considered trying to move for different work than what's around here. And I stumble on that part, the commute. I know that's going to be worse than I think right now because I haven't done it. But I'd be better to not be away from my family because they help me stay sober too. We have a life we live, and it's as it should be. I'm less likely to go get into trouble. So for me, it's essential I stay with them or move them with me probably.
Yeah. Well, where were you looking at moving?
Don't know, just a different industry. But I don't need to. It's just like I get frustrated with this one. Like everybody's got gold fever
Yeah.
is how I've figured to call it. And I get frustrated like working on things. I do a good job and then it feels like they just go destroy it. And it's not really important if I do that good of a job or not. 'Cause it's a production-based deal. So running is a good job. So yeah, and it's all like big, heavy, hard work. Sometimes dirty, cold. Not the funnest.
Yeah.
So I've moved around enough to know that it's kind of the same. A lot of it's the same wherever you go.
Yeah.
So, but I've moved around mostly just here at the same kind of gold production based places.
Mm-hmm.
And it just gets to me sometimes.
Oh, I believe it.
It keeps me up on my prayer game because that's what I have to battle against it.
Yeah.
One time I prayed, I was like, God, I don't even want to be here anymore. And then that night I got fired. I got a 9-month vacation out of the
Yeah.
deal. And I didn't do anything with the vacation. So I ended up having to go right back to work, kind of the same place.
Didn't go start another business or anything.
I sold the assets to one of my businesses, and my wife had hers going, and I ended up quitting being a part of that. So, yeah, I goofed off. I didn't have a plan. Today, like you talk about getting your money and stuff together, I hooked back up with my financial planner. I'm going to actually start talking to him again tomorrow. But when I had the planner, I got the furthest with all my side endeavors. So the smartest thing I can probably do is get all that together, make a plan as to how I would get myself into my own entrepreneurial whatever it is. Actually have a a route mapped out from A to B, and we can very well do that. Be like, this is how much it'll take, this is how long, and it'll be like a safe transition from the one to the other versus just jumping out of an airplane and building a parachute, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was sober when I first hooked up with these planners and I got all my stuff together, and then I kind of started back into the drinking again a little bit. And everything was going good. I decided, oh, I don't need this, don't need you guys. And then, yeah, I just stagnated, just had mediocre business going on. Lucky I didn't lose it, you know, in the drinking part of it. But yeah, the mentorship for that is essential. One of the smartest things you can do is to find other people to help you. It's no different with our sobriety too. Have like a sponsor or other peers or meeting elders. It's all kind of a mentorship of sorts. We don't do this program on our own. We don't do really anything on our own if you want to look at it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get frustrated, but it seems like I'm taking more of a sane approach. It's better to not jump out of the pan and into the fire.
Yeah.
That's what I keep ending up doing.
That's kind of what I've always done my whole life. And yeah, kind of wanted that smooth transition. I thought about trying to be a business owner, and I don't know what I'd own. Probably a rental somewhere, but now the price of houses and the price of mortgages just don't, the math doesn't math up.
Mm-hmm.
To do that right now, if you'd bought in, you know, any time before like 2020, you'd be doing great. But buying now just seems, unless it's in certain areas, but I don't know. I don't want to own a house on the other side of the country. I gotta go always take care of.
Right. Yeah, you got to pick something you're really interested in and something you can do pretty easily.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you kind of burn out and it doesn't work out anyway.
Yeah.
Or at least like it long enough that you can find and hire really good people to take care of the things you don't want to do. That's the goal of being an entrepreneur, is to build a business, not build just another job for yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you might as well work for somebody else. And then you don't have all the headaches. You just make the money. That's kind of some of the philosophies I've been taught. So for us, the gym was like a direct fit, and even more so for my wife. She was the first one to find CrossFit. I came and I enjoyed it later, and it's a thing I need to get back into also. But pick the thing that you like the most or you believe in the most. We believe in the mission for CrossFit, is to help people get healthy physically.
Yeah.
So that's how we started into it, not really thinking we'd be millionaires doing it. And we're not millionaires doing it. But
Well, the trick is you do that business for 20 years, and then at the end of 20 years, you're a millionaire.
yeah.
That's the other thing.
But she has a mentor, she has a roadmap from here to that being the only job we need. So just need the growth. We actually took a step back because 2 of the coaches quit this last summer.
I remember you talking about that.
Yep. So not quite back to the beginning, but pretty close because of the number of people gone. They sent emails and tried to get everybody to come over to their new gym. They tried to destroy us.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we wonder if like it's the right thing for us to be doing, but we're still doing it. So my wife's a praying person too.
That makes it easier.
Yeah. So we keep that for our strength, and we've got to trade for some better people as a result of a bunch of them leaving. So that's good.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. It's all planned out. Just got to tap into the plan.
hate to say it sometimes, but I think I'm scared of God's plan for me.
Yeah. That's healthy. Healthy fear.
It might be too easy, you know?
It'll be perfect. That's what it'll be.
Yeah.
Just wrap yourself around it. Be the best thing you can do. He's got your back.
Yeah.
How easy does the process of moving seem? Like, did this just come to you? Did you have to fight to get it?
Actually, it was super easy. Like, it was almost too easy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I rent a place here. So, I'm not taking like a ton of stuff with me.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at buying places here the last couple of years, and nothing ever quite panned out. I was too cheap or too Basco. And when I offered money to people for their house, and nobody wanted to sell to me. And yeah,
There's no mistakes. That's kind of how the wheel works sometimes.
yeah, no, yeah, gotta find a place in Colorado that we both like and we can make work.
Do you rent there now?
She has a place, but I'm renting at where I work and trying to buy a place there that we want. I want a garage, a pellet or wood stove, and like a little bit of fixer upper, but not too much. I can do a few nice little things on the days off to keep me from going insane, to keep me sane, but not tearing it down to studs and rehanging drywall and moving support beams and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's cool.
So yeah.
And the
So,
job is the same entity you already work for?
close to it.
Yeah.
Close to the same entity, pretty much same job. Stuff's going to be different. A lot of stuff's probably going to be different. Yeah, but willing to try it. I've been doing the same job pretty much since 2017. So, I could use some change in my life.
Yeah. Right on.
Hopefully. Hopefully it all goes good. I'm hoping and praying. Because, as alcoholics, change is a huge thing for us we're not exactly good with.
Mm-hmm. It gets better with practice.
It does. But, she's super excited for us to go to, Saturday morning markets together and have a partner in crime to be with instead of just her friends.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great.
And I kind of am, too. Because, it's fun seeing you guys and hanging out with you guys, but sometimes you don't want to go home to an empty house.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of want somebody to BS with at the end of the night and just hang out with.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm getting to that age. We're getting older, so it's time.
That's cool. Doesn't sound like a bad thing to me.
I don't know. No, not too bad.
So you still get to go to work in Florida?
Maybe. I don't know. That was kind of fun. That was actually a fun 3-week work trip. Kind of cracked me up because I remember being on work trips, when you're young, and they're fun. And then work trips, when you're in your 30s, you're in bed by 8 o'clock still, just like if you're home. So, yeah. They're fun, just a different type of fun.
Mm.
Yeah.
Get you by for a few months?
Yeah,
Different change of scenery?
Yeah, it was different. It's a complete different ecosystem and a different approach than out here, and it's a wildfire management, and also, you know, I got to see a part of the world I'd never seen before. I'd never made it to Florida in all my travels, and got to see Daytona and Jacksonville and the east side of Florida and Tallahassee. And that was a pretty good time seeing those and just kind of experiencing that. And yeah,
Right on.
and working with other relationships and seeing how others do it other places and putting it in like your toolkit to use later in life.
Heck yeah.
So yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed it. And the guys I went down with were some pretty good dudes. So can't complain about that.
Sweetness. You gonna miss the guys you gotta work with here?
Yeah, I am. There's, you know, I mean, like when you've worked with the same guys for 10 years, like, you know, like raised voice or tone of voice means something, and I'm going to miss them. I'm going to miss them a lot. Like, we joke around about it, and I'm going to miss the guys I work with a lot.
It's good to enjoy them that much.
Yeah,
They're kind of part of your family while you're here too.
they were. Yeah, I'm going to miss them. Yeah. I mean, I learned a lot here, and I grew as a person and as a leader and as in sobriety. And Elko's a rough town, and the people are rougher. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
Like, they even look rougher than like where I grew up in Boise. They look meaner, colder, but you will meet some of the most down to earth, good people here out of anywhere you're at. And yeah, I'm gonna miss a lot of people when I leave this area. I'm probably gonna come back for visits, like the Wilson on Monday, and probably some Brandons, some of the out ranches that I'm friends with. So yeah.
Yeah. Please do.
Oh, I'm gonna come back, and I'm never gonna have enough time to see everybody.
Yeah.
Cause like, you know, like 10 years ago, I'd go to Albertsons and I wouldn't know anybody. Now I go to Albertsons just to get groceries, and like two people either nod or say hi or send BS with you. And,
Mhm.
you know, you're like, oh man, I'm gonna miss knowing those people.
Yeah. You'll meet some new people.
Oh yeah.
You'll be like, oh, you're like that one guy I knew in Elko. Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, and the significant other was like, oh man, you're gonna have no problem making friends. Like, you're gonna have friends like you don't know it. And I'm like, I don't know, babe. I struggle making friends. Like, yeah, making friends is hard for me, believe it or not. Like, I know I'm talking on this thing and I come across as easy, but like, yeah, it's not. Like, you know, I'm still nervous, shy, wondering if I'm gonna stick my foot in my mouth or say something retarded or.
Yeah, probably all of that stuff.
And I probably do all those things, you know, and you know, I've just learned over the years I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but the friends that I do make usually end up being friends for life. Like, I remember I was coming back from Boise a couple of years ago, and I KO'd a speed goat on the Mountain City Highway at like 9 o'clock at night, you know. I had to walk like 2 miles to get cell phone service, and next thing you know, I had like 3 dudes with the trailers heading towards Maverick to get geared up to come pick up my car that's like just smoking and front end, you know, all mashed in. I got a dead speed goat on the side of the highway. And here comes down the road a guy, and he stops, and him and his wife are like, "Hey, man, is that your car on the side of the road?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it was." He's like, "Hey, today's your lucky day. I got an empty car hauler on the back of the truck. Want me to just tow it in there and tow it to your house?" And I was like, "Well, that wouldn't be a bad deal." So we winched my car up on this car hauler, and I called the guys back and said, "Hey, go ahead and cancel. I'll be in Elko in like an hour." And they were already at Maverick, turned around and said, "Okay." Dude dropped me off. I said, "Thank you." And insurance and everything handled it, and I got a car later that summer. And yeah, I drove a little rental from the car insurance till I got my new one.
That's cool.
And yeah, but like, I wouldn't have had that at one time in my life. I wouldn't have had 3 dudes willing to get out of bed to come pick you up.
Mm-hmm.
And now I do. And that means a lot to me.
Yeah, I noticed I had more mishaps and all that stuff when I was out there, and now there's more grace and things kind of smoothing things together, and just seems like God's like, yeah, I know you've been working. I'm there. I got your back. Got
Yeah.
some people to help you. And then when it's like a random person like just showed up, happened to have the car hauler,
Mm-hmm.
you got to be like, all right, that's a God wink for sure.
Oh, yeah. Like, and him and his wife were awesome.
Yeah.
I rode in the back seat.
Could have been angels.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, pretty cool life, man.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't think so. I get into the committee or into my own thinking, and it's not the greatest.
Mm-hmm.
But then other times, I just do action instead of thinking, and it's pretty good. But yeah, I probably think like the rest of us, like,
Yep.
don't make enough, house isn't nice enough, truck isn't big enough or nice enough with all the fancy lights, and are my tires big enough? And oh man, I'm 20 pounds overweight. Wife is, and other times, when I start thinking in that grateful, everything's better.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly the same.
Because, yeah. And even in those times, I've noticed that's when Steve's enough, not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if you ever have those where you're like, man, I'm not enough at work. I'm not enough this. Like,
Yeah, every week.
yeah. And then you kind of start living in the gratitude, and stuff starts becoming enough.
Yeah.
Like,
Helping people, you become more than enough
yeah, like
to them.
I'm trying to finish a project for grad school on GIS, so map making. And, I started a couple weeks ago. It was daunting, and now, like, between help of friends that are good and talking to the professor a few times, like, and actually looking up the information, it's like everything's kind of coming together for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
GIS maps, huh? That's cool.
ArcGIS Pro. Yeah.
How long do you have to work on that?
Oh, God. I'm like 15 credits into a 30 credit master's, and since, I'm a poor Basco and I choose to work full time when I go to school, I do like 1 class a semester, and then, so it's going to be a while. That's the jobs, when we get older and we retire, the next job's supposed to be an easy desk job.
Yeah. That you like.
Possibly. I don't know. I'm learning I might not like it as much as I thought. Because, yeah, we're kind of at that age where I feel like if you're already in that job and you got a pretty decent retirement, might as well just stick it out for the next 10 years and then retire, you know what I mean, and try something else.
Yeah. Yeah. Go with what you think, because that's right.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I've done with this right here. Like, this is all stuff I've messed around with all my life, more than other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, like I wouldn't know how to use that. Any of the equipment in front of us, I'd be like, deer in the headlights.
I started out by hooking up stereos backwards and blowing them up and ruining them, or tearing stuff apart and never putting it back together.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I started. So,
I think we've all started there with stuff.
yeah, I never could quit. I've tried to throw it all away too and just grow up and be an adult and work,
Mm-hmm.
and that wasn't good either. So, yeah, now it's great. Get to hang out with people like you and have cool conversations, learn about you, stuff I didn't know. That reminds me, what's a speed goat?
Speed goat, pronghorn.
Oh, okay.
Pronghorn antelope, sorry.
All right.
Oh, I have a ton of slang verbs that aren't probably legit.
It's cool, though.
One of my guys always said, one of my employees, I always called the crescent wrench a Mexican speed wrench.
Uh-huh.
And he quit working for me and took a promotion someplace else. And one day he's working on something and he's like, "Hey man, go get me a Mexican speed wrench." And everybody stopped and looked at him and he's like, "Oh God, I'm not working with Steve." That I'm like, "Oh God, I've rubbed off on people." No.
It's all right. We all need to do what that sign says, Rule 62.
Don't take ourselves so serious.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what that's good for.
Yeah.
That's the golden moments, man.
Yeah.
Working with each other. The work's always the same. Somehow or another.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget them all until I'm like in the heat of the moment, and they just all come flying out.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been like, my employees sometimes are like, you know, when he's thinking, he'll like move his hands like they're pistols and snap his fingers and be like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh God." Bunch of people just making fun of you. And then my idiotic little sayings that I got, or calling things, you know, what I grown up calling them my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I heard it one time and I liked it. So
Yep. It's all just communication anyway.
yeah,
However, you got to get it across.
yeah,
It's you. It's also rad.
I hope.
I like your take and your words for things, so it's great.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
The other one I got is chingadera.
Mm-hmm.
What's that chingadera? And people just always are like shaking their head at me, and I'm like, okay, sorry.
It's just a great word.
Oh yeah, I use it probably more than I should. I don't have much else, Brad.
Well, that's been great.
Heck yeah.
You gave me about a solid hour.
Okay. We good?
Heck yeah. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you. Shout out to Club 164. And I'm going to miss all my peeps here in Elko. Coworkers, friends. I'm going to miss all of you.